This week's podcast is going to address a topic that's quite interesting and should be fairly familiar to most of you. It's about stress and how we can turn stress into a softening.
Hello, welcome to Mark Langley's Horsemanship Podcast, a podcast helping people to understand their horses better, to provide solutions in a calm, connected way.
I'm Jenny Langley.
And I'm Mark Langley.
Mark, the first question is from Laura from Australia, and she's been helping a horse that is sensitive to noise and movement from above and behind. So she'd like to know, what would be your approach to progress this horse in hand with soft responses to the rope feel? So, for example, being able to go forwards, backwards, and step over to the side when you're stationary, when you're ahead or next to them. And then how do you transfer that approach to under saddle?
Okay, so if the biggest thing is back behind the eyes, well, do more work from the back end. Even before I do the close contact work beside a horse or anything like that, I might have to look into sort of more work from behind their eyes. But if there's anything like a flag or something, you're going to create a bit of a spook in a horse to see how they deal with it, like deliberate anxiety to see how they process it and what their go-to is, because you obviously want a horse to have a good go-to when it's anxious or worried or confused about something. And the go-to is always process the amount of whatever's in it and then do something accordingly, or if there's a feel to follow the feel. So basically the rein is always the pathway, a feel that the horse feels good about. So basically if you've got a flag and you push it really big and the horse goes, holy cow, I'm really scared of that, well, you're not going to put that behind its eye and do it straight away, but you're going to go swoosh the flag somewhere where the horse can cope with it better, like could be in front of it somewhere, until the horse goes, I'm not going to pull back when you swoosh the flag, and I'm okay with following the feel, and I can deal with this and make good decisions when I was previously quite scared of something. And then because you can go quite big with a scary thing and the horse can find a good answer, a good solution without going to flight or just complete freeze or shut down, then you start to bring that thing behind their eyes. So then I'll just work them behind them for a bit. But if you're having problems behind your horse, then you can do all those leading by lessons where you get the horse out past you and then rub them on the hip and find any areas that you find the horse is not coping with very well. And then when you can be in every position behind them, then you start to do long reining, because long reining is, I'm working from behind. You can feel the rein come around your hips and all that, and around your legs, and can you deal with that? Can you swap eyes? Can you do all that? And then basically you just bring the stimulant behind the horse, and the bit of a flag, and you might swoosh it a bit, the horse gets a fright, and then you say, well, no, just follow your feel and stay between the reins, and then you let the pressure off a bit, as in the flag a bit, until the horse can cope with seeing those things behind it and realizing that they're not going to chase it, they're just there, they're just things that happen, and just process them, but stay between the reins and stay focused on being soft and being in the reins. And at the end of the day, you're not going to die, just follow the path of least resistance. Don't worry about the little eye things that are coming up, they're not going to hurt you, they're not going to do anything bad to you. Just trust the reins, and eventually you'll be working behind your horse after 5 or 6 go in the long reins, waving a coat, doing things, patting it, and then next minute, and then also you've got to bring the stimulant up. So you might sort of bring the flag up its side from behind, or get the horse to back past the flag while it's in the long reins or whatever, to get it to move around all these sort of things, back it past the mounting block and back it through the tight gateway. In a safe fashion. Obviously you educate them enough to get them ready, but you're constantly thinking of 44 gallon drums, like the plastic ones that aren't going to hurt them, that just fall over, whatever, just work them around, back them through sort of semi-tight spaces, and just anything where they've got to have things coming up behind them or backing towards things, like a fence behind them and things like that. And as they go through gates, test them, wobble the gate as they walk through, and then slowly wobble the gate and have it tighter, and let them walk past the wobbling gate. And you're just constantly being creative with all that stuff, from stimulant from the sides and the back, and then basically you just transfer that to under saddle. Like if the mounting block, stand on the mounting block, wave the flag, we lead them around the mounting block, and then get on them. And I don't want everyone to go and step on their horse with the flag and shake it and get backed off and come back and say, hey, you told me to do that. But I want you to think about this, is if you can't ride your horse with a flag or something and shake it a little bit, then don't ride in the wind with your raincoat on or the rain, and don't let your horse canter with that zippy raincoat going zip zip flapping around behind them. So basically you have to somehow in your way and your safety build up to that you can do that all from behind their eyes. But you do it from the safety of the ground first, and then the safety of a good sturdy block that you can stand on and have the horse underneath you, working around underneath you, and then get to the stage you're back on their back. And constantly when you ride a horse, it gets a bit like that. You know, I ride a bit like, you know, geez, I'm a bit of, oh God, I'm itchy. I've got the itches today. And you know, show them that the reins are clear and my legs and heels are clear for acceleration, but everything else is a bit sort of like, you know, I'm moving a lot and I'm sort of, oh, what's over there? And I just get them used to having a live person on their back all the time, you know, and then they can work out what is pressure for them and then pressure that's not for them.
Next question is from Jane, and she's from the States. And she listened to one of your recent podcasts about how exposure is not necessarily education, and it may even lead to trigger stacking. She'd like to know what your advice and recommended techniques for educating horses to manage themselves in situations that we can't recreate. So, for example, I think she does endurance riding. So if you're in an endurance ride and a whole load of horses canter past, or riding in a busy show ring, how can we set our horses up to educate them for those stressful situations so that they can do them?
The first thing, like there's a few answers that I've been sort of work on that's about speed everything up for your horse. You know, don't get in a set rhythm. So at home, in the calm environment, make sure your horse can get up and go, slow down fast, you know, whatever it is, even if they're not a ridden horse, it's lead up, trot up a little faster, you know. Oh, we're going through a gate, bang the gate, oh, what's happening over there? Do random things around them that kind of create I didn't know what just happened, and then offer them a solution through leading or direction to help them go, I can follow a feel when things go wrong and I didn't die and I survived it, and do it in, you know, certain increments. So basically try and make the environment that you're working in a bit random. You know, people say consistency is the key, and consistency in training is and repetition, but there's something that you don't want in training all the time, and that is I'm trying to think of the word for it, when everything's the same every single day. You want to vary things a little bit, and you know, I'd like to think that you can actually keep a horse alert by going, I'm walking through a scary place and something might go wrong at any time. People don't want their horses feeling like that, but I kind of want my horses like that, because something could go wrong at any time. And the horses that I've seen that are the hardest to deal with are the quietest horses. So the ones that, and I've just had actually a few lessons just recently of the same horses that they show, and they're only young horses, they're showing all the indicators of horses that don't process scary things. They just kind of hide away in connection with the person, or they just go really quiet and they just sort of go, I'll just stay quiet and nothing will happen. But when something big happens, they're so lost, they just look like they're really explosive. So those horses, you've got to constantly keep them thinking and guessing about, you know, so like you know, if I was going to ride out and there was crazy kangaroos that were going to bounce, I know that there's crazy kangaroos that are going to bounce. If the horse didn't know there was crazy kangaroos that are going to bounce, do you think the horse is going to bounce like a crazy kangaroo when it sees it? It will, because it wasn't prepared for that, and it thought nothing was going to happen, and then when it happens, it's an overexposure. So basically, you know, loading on the horse float, how do you be creative without taking your horse to new environments and have all these horses around them? We'll start off by creating a cause of concern and then a pathway to help your horse. So like loading a horse on a float, you know, like if it was an angle load float with angle bar dividers, you know, I might be loading it on, I might bang the angle bar as it's loading, as it puts its foot on the ramp, I might bang it quickly and the horse goes, geez, I just got a fright. And I said, well, sorry, but that just happened and I can't control that, but you can always step on the ramp and step off again, and I can bang that and see it banged and you didn't die. So maybe keep trying that a little bit until, and the horse goes, oh, I just did something. And then you might take the horse away and say, you just survived that near-death experience. And the horse goes, yeah, I'm okay. I'm still here and I'm still thinking. and then as long as you can create a little bit of a bad experience in their mind, and then after that you've created a good experience through following your idea, and the horse feels safe and they feel good about it, and they let go of a thought. So you might create you might get an opportunity, as the horse might see something over there that really startles it, and then because it's startled, it's got this fixated thought. Then you go, well, pick up on a rope and let go of that thought. If the horse won't let go of that startled thought at home, it won't let go of a 10 times startled thought when you're at an endurance ride. So, it's about startling them a little bit and getting them to let go of that, and guiding them into a soft place that starts to show them that they come out of that, they find it's like about building a better neuro pathway when they get lost or they're fixated, and you're starting to create a big, nice, open neuro pathway that they go, I'll do this instead, and you're constantly saying, interrupt a thought, let go of that, try this instead, and giving them alternatives to feeling perplexed and fixated about something. Okay, so basically, and just being very creative, and there is a point, and so just a bit for everybody about overexposing horses, underexposing horses. I believe you still have to try hard if you're going to take your horse to endurance rides and throw them in the mosh pit. You have to somehow have a way of building them up for that, and doing exactly what I said that you did at home, but taking them somewhere and experimenting with it, because it just sets you up and your horse up to know what you can and can't do, so when they're ready to get to that like high octane environment, because you don't want to throw them in the deep end and still not be quite right, and then it was a big mess, and then the next time they go to an endurance ride, they remember the last time, and they get more frantic about it. So
yeah, right. So you can only work really at the level that they're coping with at that point.
Yeah.
But you're building up trust, aren't you, all the time? And like you said, making them sort of interrupting them so they have that adjustable mindset. That's actually really crucial, isn't it? That you spring in something occasionally, or you say, we're going to do this. Oh, no, we're not. And so they don't get too fixated. And so that brings them back to that basic point.
Yeah.
They've got to be in the moment. They've got to be listening to the reins and what you're doing and not drifting off. That's, essentially you're a partnership, aren't you? We're doing this together. And so whatever happens, we're doing it together. This is the pathway out.
Yeah. We've all probably sat there with someone in the room, and they've sat there and they started, oh, did you know the neighbour, they were out yesterday and they were whippersnipping at this time, and they painted their fence like this, and the neighbour, holy cow, that neighbour's. And then the next time you're there, and then suddenly you start to go to that person's house, and very quickly you go, oh, gee, did you see that over there? Did you hear that that happened the other day? And and they go, oh yeah, I heard about that. And then all of a sudden it was just a quick interruption, but otherwise you're going to have to sit there and listen to the stories about the bad neighbour for half an hour, and all it takes with a person is a healthy interruption to give them another train of thought that helps them get off that negative path. And I think if you see horses, it's the same thing. You're just interrupting a negative pathway in their brain with an alternative.
Right. Okay, that's really interesting. Can you just give an example? Because I think you've trained your own horses and brought them up to a level, and you've been using these techniques to expose them to different things. And you've taken young horses into situations. They've grown up in paddock life, out on the farm, and then you've taken them on a long float journey, and all of a sudden they're surrounded by all these other horses that they don't know, riding out or riding in the arena, and they've coped, haven't they? Can you just describe, the story behind the horses that have had your training and how well they really can do, just to give people a picture of what they can aim for?
Yeah, well, they have coped. There's times that they haven't, because I have thrown them in the deep end, because like a mechanic, sometimes I'm working on all the other cars, not my own. But there's times there with the young horses, and there was a particular mare that I started was full sensory overload mare, and she's a real tough mare, I thought, one of the toughest that we've sort of bred in a sense, but a real nice mare, and it's the only one we've ever bred that was that sensitive. And it was quite interesting, because when I took her to a new place, she still had a sensory overload, and I had to be wary of that, because her sensory overload meant there's all these horses running around and I'm still sensitive to all the feel that you offer me. But at the same time, when I'd go and catch her or do something, she'd chase other horses off to say, I know him and I trust him, and I want to stay around him and be with him, you know, and she was highly connected to me in the new environment, as in she I knew it was going to be sensory overload. So I'm talking about what I call a fairly extreme mare that, but as she got better with understanding the sensory things, because any pressure on her, she was very sensitive, had to be very, you know, specific on the way you taught her. But she would start to cope with things knowing that, well, I'm okay with you. I know this environment's not very good, but I trust your direction. Now, the better she got at being less sensitive and sensory, the better she trusted direction. And another mare, similar sort of throw in the deep end, she was very green, and I was a bit too green to take her away, I thought, but she did trust the range, she did trust what I asked her, and she did know how to think through a bit of pressure. Well, when she went to a new environment, she really sort of turned on and did really good, because she was like, I'm off my dunghill, I'm reliant on you because all my friends are gone, all my other friends that I live with all the time. I don't know any of these horses, and we can ride where we want and not worry about that stuff, because she was able to trust the education and the guidance that I'd given her. And I think that's the main thing you got to think about. And I'm sort of more so showing the young horses that have been exposed a little bit quick and when they weren't quite ready, but how they sort of honed into the trusting the education.
That's amazing. So instead of them becoming quite frantic, disassociated from you, their anxiety levels going up and making it very hard to control them, ride them, and, you know, get them present, you've actually found the opposite. That the horses that have come through your training, when they're in those situations, they fall back and rely on you way more than they did even at home.
Yeah, and
wow.
Before that, when I used to train, you know, there's a few sale horses years ago that when I had an idea of maybe getting a horse here and there and maybe putting it through a sale, and, you know, just when we were sort of starting off breeding a few horses and whatnot, and some people would send me a horse to start, and, you know, and I look back and I reflect and I go, back then I had a certain amount of obedience in them, but the real following a feel and trusting pressure, I hadn't quite sort of really sort of harnessed.
Yeah.
And I noticed those horses, when they got in a stressful environment, they started to get worried about the pressure, and the more heightened the environment, the more worried about the pressure, or the reins, or the legs, and the different things I was asking.
That's just a reflection on the whole of the education.
It was a reflection on how they felt about, and it goes back to the saying that I have, that I try and say to everybody: is your horse following a feel, or is it moving away from a pressure? Is it hunting release, or is it following a feel? That's the other way, you know. And I think back then, I think the horses that I was training, I still, in their mind, I think they were hunting a release, not trusting the feel of pressure, and just following the path of least resistance in a comfortable way, and engaging with the pressure and conversation.
Yeah, but since you've honed in sort of, you know, really deep knowledge about feel and the horse's understanding of pressure and coping with pressure and actually feeling okay about pressure. And one comment you made recently was that pressure can help a horse to feel good. That's a whole new sort of way of thinking about things. And the results are that you have a horse that's actually just able to cope so much more, and the trust is there with you. That's really interesting to hear. So Jane, I hope that gives you some ideas and something to sort of work towards. And thank you so much for your question, and Laura for your question as well that's come through. Thank you to all of our members for supporting us. We wouldn't be able to do these podcasts without the membership being out there. So, you know, we hope that we're helping people train their horses in a way that helps them and also helps their horses. Thanks so much for your time, Mark. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you, Jenny, and thank you, everybody.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please like it, share it, or send us a comment. It all helps in reaching new ears and helping more horses. And if making a change in your horse appeals to you, Mark offers his direct support and a diverse learning platform. Head to marklangley.com.au and grab your 7-day free trial.